If you grew up in the 80s, let me test something real quick. Do you feel that sound? The metallic clink of quarters hitting an arcade machine. The screen flashing. Your heart racing because this wasn't just a game. This was reputation. Or maybe it was Saturday morning cartoons. You woke up early, pajamas still on, bowl of cereal dangerously oversized, and you knew one thing: you get one shot. No pause, no rewind. Miss it, and it's gone forever. Now here's the question nobody asks you. What if that childhood didn't just entertain you? What if it trained your nervous system? Because people who grew up in the 80s weren't just raised differently, they were wired differently. And in today's overstimulated, anxious, always online world, that wiring is starting to look less outdated and more like a survival advantage. Let's be honest. By today's standards, your childhood was borderline illegal. You vanished on bikes, no helmets, no phones, no tracking apps, just a vague be home later and absolute confidence you'd survive. And here's what that did psychologically. It built self-efficacy, the deep belief that I can handle this. Not because someone told you it, but because you proved it to yourself daily. You navigated real risk early, scraped knees, bad decisions, wrong turns, and every time you figured it out, your brain logged a win. That's why today, when things get uncertain, you don't freeze. You move. You trust yourself because you had to, long before anyone else did. Now let's talk about MTV. Back when it was pure sensory overload, fast cuts, neon colors, music videos that made absolutely no sense. Big hair, bigger confidence. Zero explanations. Your brain grew up processing chaos, but without infinite scrolling. Psychologists call this divergent thinking, the ability to connect ideas creatively instead of linearly. You weren't fed algorithms, you absorbed culture visually. Album covers, posters, VHS tapes, arcade screens. That's why 80s kids are so good at seeing patterns, imagining outcomes, and thinking outside the box. You don't need perfect instructions to start. You don't panic when things look messy. You've always known creativity is born in chaos. And yes, some of those hair choices were unforgivable. Growth requires sacrifice. Here's the part people romanticize, but don't fully understand. The 80s weren't just fun, they were unstable. Booming economy, sudden crashes, parents working late, empty houses, frozen dinners. So you learned a powerful rule early. Nothing is guaranteed. Psychologically, this built delayed gratification. You wanted something? You waited. Saved coins. Rode your bike. Put in effort. Your brain learned that reward comes after work, not instantly. That's why today's instant everything culture feels hollow to you. You're wired for progress, not shortcuts. You don't quit easily. You expect friction. And that makes you dangerous in the long run. If you grew up in the 80s, you learned social skills the raw way. You knocked on doors. You called houses and talked to parents first. You handled awkward silence one night with your actual face. No filters, no typing indicators, no escape hatch. This built social attunement, the ability to read people, energy, and unspoken signals. That's why you can sit in a room and feel what's going on. Why you don't need constant validation. Why you're comfortable being fully present. You learned connection before performance. Conversation before content. And today, that skill is rare and incredibly valuable. Now here's the real twist. 80s kids have extreme cognitive flexibility. Why? Because you've already lived through multiple worlds. Analog childhood, digital adulthood, old rules, new systems. You didn't grow up dependent on technology, you learned it. So change doesn't scare you, it activates you. When systems break, you adapt. When plans collapse, you pivot. When chaos hits, you stay grounded. You're not nostalgic because you're stuck. You're reflective because you've seen cycles repeat. And that makes you quietly unstoppable. So if you ever feel out of place in today's world, if the noise feels exhausting, if everything seems rushed, reactive, and shallow, remember this. You weren't raised for comfort. You were raised for competence. You grew up unsupervised and learned self-trust. You earned rewards and learned patience. You adapted early and learned resilience. 80s kids aren't outdated. You're built for transition. In a world that's overwhelmed by change, you're calm inside it. So tell me, What's your most unforgettable 80s memory? Arcades? Mixtapes? BMX wipeouts? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe for more generational psychology. Because your generation didn't just survive change, you were trained by it.